Hello everyone, happy day. Dr. Amy here with the Free Range Mama Project, and today I have an awesome video planned for you. We're going to talk about how to increase your milk supply. So I have 12 tips that I'm going to run through, and then at the end of the video I want to share a quick story, and I should say really more my experience with the process of breastfeeding and milk supply, just so you guys understand where I'm coming from. So let's start with the tips. First tip is water. Water's your friend. So what I typically tell patients that are, breastfeeding, I always say, increase your water to half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, that's 100 ounces, and then some more. So one of the things that really helped myself was doing, I carried around a Hydro Flask bottle, which Hydro Flasks are awesome because they're stainless steel, so there's no plastics or any of the other garbage in them. But I carried around a 40-ounce one, and it helped me stay on track to say, okay, so I've done 40 ounces, and now I have to do another 40. Okay, so I'm halfway through, or I'm a third through. So first tip is lots and lots of water, and make sure that you're keeping yourself super hydrated. With that, my tip number 2 is making sure that you're staying hydrated and that your electrolytes are balanced. One of the common things I see a lot of my pregnant moms that I take care of, or postpartum moms, do is Gatorade or Powerade because of the electrolyte balance. I would highly recommend avoiding those because of the added sugars, the sucralose, aspartame, fake sugars, all the other crud that's added to those, fake colors. I would do something more a natural electrolyte balance, and the one that I use and I have a lot of my patients use, it's safe for breastfeeding. It's called Ultima Electrolyte Replenisher. You can get it either in like the stick, so you can grab and go, throw it in your diaper bag, throw it in your purse, and put it in your water bottle and shake it up. Or if there's a flavor that you absolutely love, which there's a ton of awesome flavors, you can just get a canister of it and then just do little spoonfuls. I used it during pregnancy when I was dehydrated. I used it after pregnancy through breastfeeding for electrolyte replenishing to help with milk supply, and then I also use it now with my workouts. So it's multi-purpose, and like I said, it's safe. So that's my number 2 is electrolyte replenisher, and I would recommend Ultima. I'll tag this below too in the description to make it easy for you to find. So number 3 is oatmeal. Now this is something that if you are going to do oatmeal, I'd recommend doing it in the morning for breakfast. I would also recommend doing real oatmeal, meaning using still cut oats, organic still cut oats, or organic rolled oats, not the microwavable Quaker oat packages with, like the dinosaur candies in them. I would use true real oatmeal, and then with that being said, I would also do good fat. So I put in a spoonful of good nut butter, or I would put in coconut oil, so MCT oil for the medium chain triglycerides, the good fats, or a little bit of sprinkled coconut flakes on top. So that is my 3rd tip, is oatmeal in the morning. That does make a big difference as far as increasing milk supply. Talking about oatmeal, my 4th tip is a cookie recipe from Mama Natural. She's amazing. She's got a ton of great tips, and her cookie recipe was the cleanest one I could find as far as great ingredients that have been shown and proven to help increase milk supply, as well as not having a ton of other gunk in them. They weren't that hard to make. I say that, but my little sister made them for me. But I was, her sous chef in the kitchen. She made them for me with my postpartum journey. So they're amazing. They were easy to do, and they went a long way. So we made them every weekend just to have them for the week. So my 5th tip, so 4th was cookie, 5th tip is power pumping. And if you are someone now, whether you're trying to increase milk supply, whether you are breastfeeding as well as bottle feeding, whether you're supplementing with formula, the idea of power pumping, especially in the beginning, and especially if you are struggling with milk supply, is that stimulates that cluster feeding response. So it stimulates that, hey body, we need to make more. So if you are someone that is struggling with that milk supply, I would definitely recommend doing power pumping. With the power pumping as well, my next tip would be making sure that you're sticking to a schedule. Now, I know schedule is like an evil, dirty word, especially with postpartum. You're like trying to keep yourself alive, and you're trying to keep your child alive, and you're trying to keep your husband alive. I understand it's tough to stick to a schedule, but it is important, again, because the purpose of it is to try and stimulate just the same thing that would happen with the baby nursing, every other hour or every hour and a half, every 2 hours. So do your best to stick to a schedule, even in the middle of the night. I know it's not fun, but do your best to stick to that schedule, because that schedule does matter. So that is my 6th tip. My next one for you guys is checking the flange size. So the flange is that lovely circle piece that goes over the nipple that you attach to the pump hose, and then that attaches to the pump. Check and make sure, and you might want to do this with a lactation consultant, but make sure that that thing is the right size for you. I didn't know that mattered, and I started working with a lactation consultant who was phenomenal, and she's like, whoa, this is not the right size for you. And we changed it up. I think I went from like a 24 millimeter to a 27, and it was a night and day difference, just as far as the suction it got and what it actually did to move milk. So also, when we're talking about flange size, I would also look at pumps. I didn't know this either until I started experimenting with different pumps, but different pumps do different things. Remember that my body is different than your body. Unfortunately, our conventional system does everything the same. We cookie cut. But when it comes to milk supply, when it comes to breast size, when it comes to that whole process, sometimes one pump works great for one person and not the other. So I used the Medela, I believe is what it's called, and it did okay. And then with my lactation consultant, she had the hospital grade pumps on like you could borrow them and just use your own flange sizes. And that thing made a night and day difference for me. So again, don't be afraid to try new pumps if this is something that you're passionate about and serious about to try and get your kiddo your milk. So the next tip that I have for you guys are milk teas. Now, I love this one. It was kind of like my routine. As my mid-morning, after I did my oatmeal for the breakfast, I did Earth Mama Milkmaid tea. With that, and then with the cookie, I noticed a huge increase. Typically, you'll see that you have more milk in the morning, so that's why I try to do everything in the morning, just to continue like pushing that throughout the day. One thing I will tell you, and this is just like honest talk, when we're talking about I have a lot of moms that are like, okay, I have my baby, let's lose this weight, let's power through this thing. And if you are someone that is struggling with milk supply, it is not always an easy thing to drop that weight when you're doing things like oatmeal and oatmeal cookies and those a little bit more inflammatory foods. But understand that there's typically one or the other, meaning that if you're gonna lose weight and do all of these things, that's fine, but give yourself some grace and give yourself some understanding that this is a season of your life, that you're just nourishing your child. So be patient with that process. That was something I had to speak into myself, and I hopefully am speaking into you. Okay, so after teas, my next tip for you is skin to skin. Now, this sounds like no-brainer, and I had a ton of people tell me, like, put your baby on your skin, no shirt, like skin to skin contact, and then smell that perfect little head. And essentially what happens is our bodies are incredible. We are created by design. We are innately intelligent, and there's something within our bodies that when you put baby to chest, when you put skin to skin, that your body recognizes the scent of your baby. Your baby also will do more rooting, so it'll go and find the nipple, because that is, again, how it is innately wired to go find food. The smelling of the baby, it affects your oxytocin and affects your hormones to tell your body, hey, time to make this milk to feed baby. So you only get those little snuggles for so long. Please soak them up. They're amazing. I try and snuggle my 18-month-old now, and he's like, let me go, Mom. So enjoy those snuggles and sniff that perfect baby's head. So the next three, so my last three that I have for you guys, I want to talk about supplements. With supplements, there's a couple great options out there. I would be mindful. Fenugreek is a common one that I hear a lot of patients have used. I would make sure that you're managing your case with either your OB, a lactation consultant, if anyone else manages your hormones, because if you have a thyroid condition, sometimes fenugreek can throw that one way or the other, and it can affect you. So that can be a contraindication to using that. I use what was called Moringa. I got 100% organic Moringa on Amazon, and I can tag that for you guys below. It was Moringa, Moringa, and that made a big difference in my milk supply. Liquid Gold is also another good company as well. So I also, in addition to supplements, did placenta encapsulation. Now, I've had some patients that have had amazing experiences with it, meaning it's made a huge increase of their milk supply, and I've had some patients that felt like personally for them it actually decreased their supply. So again, if it's something that you're interested in doing, I would recommend talking to your midwife, your doula, your OB, your lactation consultant, because it is something that I've seen go one way or the other. For me, it helped, but again, that doesn't always mean that what works for one person works for the other. So make sure you're working with your birth team. The very last thing I have for you, and I don't know so much that this is a tip for milk supply, but just something that I recommend doing if you're a breastfeeding mom, breastfeeding/pumping mom, is using a Haakaa, Haakaa. So a Haakaa is a small, it's about yay big, silicone hand pump. And the idea is that when you're feeding on one side, to put it on the other side to allow the drip, so to speak, to catch in this hand pump. It does give a little bit of suction, but I didn't think that I leaked. And when I use that thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting more in this Haakaa than I was in my actual pump. So if you are someone that is trying to get, like myself, every little bit of milk supply that we can, I use the Haakaa as I was nursing on one side or pumping on one side. I put the Haakaa on the other side. So I would recommend trying that. So those are my 12 tips for you. I want to share a quick story with you guys. I personally, when I was 21 years old, I had a breast reduction, and I was told at that time that it could affect my milk supply. I was 21 years old. I was not thinking about milk supply or babies or husbands or anything. Husband, one, at that time. So that was something that was in the back of my head always, that could possibly affect my milk supply. And then when I had my son, I hemorrhaged severely. It's a whole nother story that we'll talk about at a different time, but I hemorrhaged severely, and because of that great loss of blood and that loss of body liquid, blood volume, that also caused dehydration, and that made a difference in my milk supply. And then my son really had a tough time latching because he had a significant lip and tongue tie. So all that I tell you because I really had to battle this process, and I, as a natural healthcare provider, I struggled because everything in the natural world talks about breastfeeding is best and breast is best, and almost there's a negative connotation if you don't do it or if you do formula. Not that you're a bad person, but there's kind of just like, ooh. And I told my husband this recently that, as I've taken care of moms through this process, there's so many pictures and so many memes and all these things that you see of women like breastfeeding. They look so happy and everything's perfect. And I will tell you, in my experience, the majority of the moms I've taken care of have not had a perfect journey. And if you are someone that's been super easy for, I think that's awesome. But I just want to remind you to be compassionate. And what I've learned is that a fed baby is the best baby. Fed is best because you can only do so much. So I hope that these tips help. For me personally, I did everything to give my son what I could for myself, and this is why I did the things that I mentioned, because my goal was to give him whatever I could. I did end up supplementing with formula, and I'll talk about that in a future video, because we dug really deep to find a clean formula, or, one that didn't have all the crap that we'll talk about in the future in a future video. So I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm here to support you guys. I know that the journey of motherhood is a crazy one. I know that there's things that come up that nobody talks about or that you feel lost in. And so my goal is to help bridge that gap. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope you have an amazing day. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.